But I want to get you caught up with some breaking news that is occurring not very far away from our studios here in Westminster. Protesters are being detained as police drive demonstrators out of Whitehall and into Trafalgar Square. These are far-right demonstrators who descended on Downing Street. Missiles were thrown at police a little bit earlier in the evening. Several men were wrestled to the floor and handcuffed after confronting police, and police are now attempting to open Whitehall to traffic. Several hundred officers were involved in the operation to manage the protest, and I can tell you that earlier in the evening, as I made my way here to Westminster, you could see the police beginning to take up positions outside Downing Street, on Whitehall, and to the north and south of Downing Street. All of this relating to the events in Southport on Monday. LBC's reporter Helen Hoddinott is with us live, and she has the latest news. Helen, what's the situation?
Well, Simon, as I approached the protest earlier, Whitehall was closed off with police vans waiting in Trafalgar Square. A group were gathering across from Downing Street, letting off coloured flares with smoke filling the air. There were chants of "stop the boats" as officers close to the group called for backup, eventually creating a human barricade across the road. Signs read, "We will not be silenced." And members of the group were warning that, in their words, it's all going to kick off. Some of the groups started testing police, making their way out of the designated rally zone a little bit further each time. Officers were being shoved and protesters started pushing against railings. One of the men speaking to the crowd with a microphone claimed that the protest was about knife crime. He said it's out of control, citing Southport and the Southend machete attacks this week. The Met says this reaction is a result of misinformation. Officers then put on riot gear as demonstrators surrounded the cenotaph before bottles and cans started being launched at officers. Now, as you say, before this all happened, police issued a dispersal order this afternoon saying that protesters had to be gone by 8:30. That, as we know, didn't happen. And now there's this huge police operation involving hundreds of officers underway to finally break it up. There's a steady stream of arrests being made, and dozens of protesters have now been detained.
And Helen, I saw those Stop the Boats flags that were flying, that some of these protesters were carrying as I made my way to Westminster this evening, and it was pretty apparent that there was a substantial police presence that was gathering there. But you could also hear among people that were arriving to participate in these protests that they were saying that they had been motivated to take part in this by what had taken place in Southport. I know that Tommy Robinson, through his social media channels, was promoting this protest as well. We're also getting reports of unrest at the moment in the northeast of England, with another protest taking place in Hartlepool. But there in central London, Helen, is it your impression that this is directly a result of what has taken place over the last 48 hours in Southport? And do you get the sense that police are getting this situation under control and that protesters are dispersing, or is this going to be a continuing story through the night in central London?
Well, we saw those devastating protests happen last night with dozens of police officers being, a lot of them hospitalised up in the northeast. And this seems to be another kind of copycat protest after that. As I say, police are saying that these protests are a result of misinformation that was shared after the killings earlier this week. And they're trying to encourage the protesters to take that view. At the moment, things are still extremely tense between protesters and the police.
Helen Hoddinott, thank you very much indeed for that live update, and we will obviously be keeping an eye on that situation over the course of the next several hours here on LBC. One witness in Hartlepool describes the situation there as a full-on riot, with police with riot shields reportedly being confronted by men wearing balaclavas and carrying large wooden bats.